You stay behind me, okay? Just hold on.
No, they found me!
Not on my watch!
Ben almost stepped over the woman in the dark. She was curled against the brick wall beneath the diner's front window, barefoot, soaked from the night rain, one arm wrapped around her ribs like she was trying to hold herself together. Then she opened her eyes, grabbed his apron with surprising strength, and whispered, "If the men looking for me see your daughter before sunrise, she won't make it to school." If stories like this hit you in the chest, subscribe, like the video, and tell me where you're watching from before we begin. Because this one does not let go, and I promise, the ending will stay with you. Ben Carter frozen with his key still halfway to the lock. Nobody was supposed to know about Lily. Not like that. Not enough to use her. The parking lot of Carter's diner was empty except for his old pickup and the pale smear of rainwater shining under the street lamp. Upstairs, in the cramped apartment over the diner, his 10-year-old daughter was asleep with a science book open on her chest and a lamp still on, because she always said the dark felt louder after her mother died. Ben crouched slowly. The woman looked expensive, even ruined. Her coat was cashmere, torn at the sleeve. One earring was missing. Her lip was split. There were streaks of mud on her face and dried blood at her collar. But what unsettled him most was her expression. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't lost. She was hunted. "Who are you?" Ben asked. Her eyes flicked to the road, then back to him. "Please," she said. "Not here." That should have been enough for him to walk away. He was 38, tired down to the bone, raising Lily alone, fighting a late utility bill, 2 months behind on the supplier, and 1 bad week away from losing the diner his father had left him. He did not have room in his life for mystery women bleeding on the sidewalk. But then she tried to sit up and couldn't, and Ben saw it. On the inside of her wrist, half hidden by the torn cuff, were deep purple finger marks. Not an accident. Someone had held on hard enough to leave ownership behind. He looked at the road again. Empty. "Can you stand?" She hesitated. "You shouldn't help me." "That wasn't my question." He slid her arm over his shoulder. She winced, bit back a cry, and they stumbled through the side entrance into the warm, dark kitchen. The smell of old coffee and bleach wrapped around them. Ben kicked the door shut, locked it, and helped her onto the bench in the storage room. He grabbed a towel, the first aid kit, and a bottle of water. When he came back, she was staring at the family photo on the shelf above the canned peaches. Ben and Lily at the county fair. Summer, smiling too hard, because it was the first one without Megan. "That your daughter?" she asked. "Yes." The woman swallowed. "Then you really need to listen to me." Ben crouched again and held out the water. "Start talking." She took the bottle but didn't drink. Her hand was shaking. "My name is Elena." "Last name?" "Don't make me say it yet." Ben gave a humorless laugh. "That's not how this works." "No," she said, looking him straight in the eye. "It's exactly how it works when saying my last name gets people hurt." Before he could answer, footsteps thudded overhead. Small ones. Lily. Ben stood instantly. "Stay here." But Lily was already padding down the back stairs in mismatched socks, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since preschool. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were half open. "Dad?" Then she saw the woman. Lily stopped on the last step. "Who's that?" "A customer," Ben said too quickly. "At 4 in the morning?" Elena almost smiled, but the expression broke from pain before it could settle. Lily came closer anyway. Children were reckless with kindness. She looked at Elena's face, the blood, the trembling hands, and whispered, "Did somebody hurt you?" Silence. Ben opened his mouth to shut this down, but Elena answered first. Yes. Lily nodded once, as if that explained everything. Then she set the rabbit beside Elena on the bench. "For when you're scared," she said. Something changed in Elena's face right then. Not safety. Not yet. But something cracked. Some wall she'd been bleeding just to keep standing. Ben saw it. And for the first time, he got afraid in a different way. Because whatever had chased this woman here was bad enough to make that simple gesture feel dangerous. He settled Lily upstairs with strict instructions not to come down again, then returned to the storage room with hot tea and clean bandages. Elena had finally removed her coat. There was a bruise spreading under her jaw, another along her shoulder, and a nasty gash near her ribs. Ben cleaned it in silence. She hissed through her teeth, "You any good at this?" My wife was a nurse. The words landed between them heavier than he intended. Elena glanced up. Was? Car accident. 3 years ago. I'm sorry. Ben tied the bandage tighter than necessary. You can repay me by explaining why you know my daughter exists. Her fingers tightened around the teacup. Because the men looking for me already looked into you. Ben went still. Elena inhaled slowly, like even breathing had become something to negotiate. I ended up outside your diner because I ran out of road. But your name wasn't random. I saw this place earlier this week.
I heard people talking about you. Single dad, keeps to himself, paid off half the town in free coffee during the winter storm. Too stubborn to close, too decent to ignore someone freezing outside. Ben stared at her. She gave a weak, broken shrug. I gambled on decent. And if I'd called the police? A bitter little laugh escaped her. Then I'd already be dead. She reached into the torn lining of her coat and pulled out something wrapped in plastic. A phone. Not just any phone. Burn marks at the edge, scratched screen, heavy case. I need this somewhere safe until I can get it to the right people. Ben didn't take it. What is it? The reason they'll keep coming. He looked at the phone, then at her. No. Her expression emptied. No? No phones. No secret packages. No hitmen before breakfast. You can rest for an hour. I'll give you money. And then you leave. Elena nodded too fast, too calm, like she had expected that. Okay, she said quietly. Then at least let me tell you one thing before I go. Ben folded his arms. She held his gaze and said, Your wife Megan didn't die because of rain. The room went cold. Ben didn't move for a full second. Then he grabbed the bench so hard it screeched against the tile. What did you say? Elena flinched, not from his volume, but from the truth she'd just dropped between them. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry to be the one saying it like this, but I've seen the file. There was no file. There was. Ben stepped back as if she'd hit him. Megan had died on Route 17, on a slick November night, driving home after a double shift at the clinic. That was the story. Hydroplaning. Guardrail. Instant. It was the only version he had left. Elena's voice lowered. The report was changed. Ben shook his head. No. The original said her car was forced off the road. No. She called 911 before impact. Ben's face drained of color. Nobody knew about the call. Not publicly. He'd asked about that for months. The line had been disconnected, unrecoverable. Weather interference. He had lived with that unanswered silence like a nail in his chest. Elena blinked back tears of her own. She saw something, Ben. His name sounded wrong in her mouth now. Too intimate. Too late. What did she see? He asked. Before Elena could answer, headlights swept across the front windows. Both of them turned. One pair, then another, then another. 3 black SUVs rolled into the parking lot and stopped in perfect formation outside Carter's diner. Elena shut her eyes. No, she whispered. Too fast. Ben's whole body tightened. Who are they? But he already knew from the way men climbed out of those vehicles. Not cops. Worse. Controlled. Clean. Expensive. Men who never ran because the world usually moved aside. A 4th car pulled in behind them. Sheriff Dobbs. Ben actually laughed once, short and hollow. You've got to be kidding me. Elena was on her feet now despite the pain. Listen to me. If they ask, you've never seen me. Don't mention the phone. Don't let them upstairs. The diner door rattled under a knock that wasn't really a knock. Ben looked at her, then at the stairs to Lily, then back to the front windows. He should have thrown Elena out the back. He knew that. He knew it in the part of him that counted bills in the dark and checked Lily's inhaler twice before bed, and had no room left for heroics. Instead, he pointed toward the walk-in freezer. Inside, back corner. Don't make a sound. Her eyes flashed with something like disbelief. Go, he snapped. She disappeared just as the knock came again, harder. Ben smoothed his apron, wiped his hands, and opened the diner. Rain-slick leather shoes crossed the threshold first. Then a man in a charcoal coat, mid-40s, handsome in that practiced, predatory way that made you trust him until you noticed there was nothing human behind his smile. Mr. Carter, he said. Wade Mercer. Sheriff Dobbs stepped in beside him, all fake reassurance and belly. Morning, Ben. Bit early for pancakes, Sheriff. Wade's smile widened. We're looking for a woman, about 32, dark hair, injured, mentally unstable. Ben said nothing. Wade slid a photo across the counter. Elena. Clean, elegant, wearing a white dress at some gala. Arm looped through that of a silver-haired man Ben recognized instantly from campaign signs, charity billboards, and the giant smiling banner hanging over half the county. Victor Hale, real estate king, philanthropist, future governor if the news kept loving him. And in the picture, Elena was standing right beside him. She's family, Wade said smoothly. There's concern for her safety. Ben looked from the photo to Wade. Then why are you searching diners before dawn with an escort? The sheriff leaned on the counter. Ben, don't make this difficult. There it was. Not a request, a warning. Ben slid the photo back. I opened 20 seconds ago. Haven't seen her. Wade studied him for a beat too long. May we look around? No. Dobbs straightened. You got something to hide? Ben met his gaze. Just spoiled pie and low profit margins. One of the suited men moved toward the hallway leading to the stairs.
Ben stepped into his path. Every muscle in the room hardened.
Wade spoke softly. "Mr. Carter, you have a daughter, correct?" Ben's heart thudded once. Then Wade smiled again. "Cute age. 10?" The sheriff looked away. That was all Ben needed to understand the rules had already changed. He leaned both hands on the counter and said just as quietly, "If you take one more step toward those stairs, I'll break your jaw with my coffee pot, and this whole town will watch me do it." For one dangerous second, nobody moved. Then Wade exhaled through his nose, amused. "Interesting," he said. "If you happen to remember anything, call me." He set down a business card. Embossed, black, no title, just a number. The men turned and left. The sheriff paused at the door, giving Ben a look that wasn't guilt and wasn't loyalty either. It was fear. That scared Ben more than the SUVs. When they were gone, he locked every door and ran to the freezer. Elena stumbled out, shivering violently. "You lied to them," she said. "I haven't decided if that was brave or stupid." "They're the same thing, usually." Ben shoved the business card at her. "Explain. Now." She stared at the name as though she hated even reading it. "Wade Mercer runs security for Victor Hale." "Hale the developer?" "Hale the Empire." Ben's jaw tightened. "And you're what, his daughter?" Elena's mouth twisted. "His daughter-in-law." The words hung there like another impact. Ben looked at her again. Really looked. The expensive coat. The polished accent she was trying to flatten. The bruises she'd learned to hide until tonight. "You're married to them." "I was sold to them with better branding." Ben didn't answer. Elena braced herself against the prep table. "Victor's son Adrian married me 2 years ago. Publicly, it was a fairy tale. Privately, I learned rich men don't always need to raise their voices when everyone around them is paid to call cruelty a misunderstanding." Ben stared at the phone in her hand. She held it out again. "Victor's company caused more deaths than the papers know. Fires, construction collapses, missing workers, paid judges, bought deputies, buried witness statements. I started copying everything when I realized Adrian wasn't just protecting his father. He was helping him." "And Megan?" Ben asked, barely getting the name out. Elena swallowed. "She saw Adrian's driver forcing a reporter off Route 17. She stopped. She called 911. They chased her before she could report the plates. The driver's statement is on this phone. So is the dispatcher recording they buried." Ben couldn't breathe for a second. His wife. Not random. Not weather. Not bad luck. Taken. He turned away, one hand over his mouth, and looked out through the kitchen window where dawn was beginning to gray the lot. He remembered Megan laughing at him for burning toast when they first moved into the apartment above the diner. He remembered her singing while folding Lily's pajamas. He remembered standing in a hospital hallway, staring at a doctor's mouth and hearing nothing after the word gone. All those years, all that grief shaped around a lie. The storage room door creaked. Lily stood there, pale and wide-eyed. She had heard enough. "Mom didn't have an accident?" she whispered. Ben closed his eyes. He had spent 3 years trying to build a world that felt safe enough for his daughter to sleep in. And in one morning, that world was ash. He crossed the room fast and knelt in front of her. "Lily,
Did somebody do it on purpose? No parent ever has the right words for that. Not when the truth is a blade. Ben's voice cracked. I don't know everything yet. Lily looked at Elena, then back at her father. Tears were already burning in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She had her mother's stubbornness. So those men, she said, they're bad. Yes, Elena answered, before Ben could soften it. Lily nodded slowly. Then we can't give her back. Ben stared at his daughter. There it was, the impossible choice, handed to him by a child in rabbit slippers. By 8 in the morning, the diner was open because it had to be. People in small towns noticed closed signs more than funerals. Ben kept Elena hidden in the apartment upstairs while he poured coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Every bell over the door made him look up. Every passing black SUV made his pulse jump. Then Sheriff Dobbs came back. Not alone. 2 deputies, 1 social worker. Lily was in a booth doing homework. Ben felt the blood leave his face. Mornin', Dobbs said loudly, letting customers hear. Got a report of unsafe conditions on the premises. Need to ask a few questions. Public humiliation always arrives smiling. Customers went quiet. Forks paused mid-air. A trucker at the counter turned fully on his stool. Miss Harriet from the pharmacy clutched her purse like scandal might jump on her. The social worker approached Lily gently. Sweetheart, we just need to talk. Ben came around the counter so fast a mug shattered behind him. Absolutely not. Dobbs lifted his chin. Stand down, Ben. You bring CPS into my diner because I didn't let your rich friends search my apartment? Careful. But he wasn't careful. Not anymore. You knew, Ben said, loud enough for the room. About my wife. You knew. A murmur moved through the diner. Dobbs's face hardened. That's enough. No, you tell me in front of everybody. How much did they pay you to call murder weather? The first deputy grabbed Ben's arm. Instantly, chairs scraped back. Lily stood up, terrified. Dad! Ben jerked free. Dobbs took that as his moment and shoved him hard enough to send him crashing into a table. Plates smashed, coffee spilled. Someone screamed. Then Lily ran toward him. One deputy caught her by the shoulder to stop her from getting in the middle. Ben saw red. He lunged. 3 men pinned him to the floor of his own diner while his daughter cried and half the town watched. Don't touch her! Ben roared. Don't you touch my kid! And over all of it, through the blur of boots and broken glass, he heard Elena's voice from the top of the stairs. Stop! Every head turned. She stood there bruised and shaking, one hand on the railing, looking less like a runaway now and more like what she really was. A woman who had finally decided being silent was already killing everyone. Wade Mercer stepped through the open door behind the deputies as if he had been waiting for exactly this. Elena, he said softly. There you are. The room fell into a stunned hush. Miss Harriet covered her mouth. Somebody near the window whispered, That's Hale's daughter-in-law. Elena looked at Ben on the floor, then at Lily sobbing in the deputy's grip, and made her choice. I'll go, she said. Let them go. Ben's head snapped up. No! Wade smiled like a man who loved predictable endings. Elena descended the stairs slowly. Lily broke free and ran to her father. Ben held his daughter tight while Elena reached the bottom step. But when she passed the counter, she did something so small almost nobody noticed. She slid her fingers under the pie stand. Then she kept walking. Wade put a possessive hand at her back and escorted her outside. The SUVs pulled away. Dobbs ordered everyone to forget what they'd seen and left soon after. But the damage stayed behind in the silence. By noon, half the town had heard some version of the story. By 1, Ben's diner was empty. By 2, Lily was sitting upstairs on their bed with red eyes and her inhaler in her lap, asking the kind of question that destroys fathers. "If Mom called for help," she whispered, "why didn't anyone come?" Ben sat beside her and had no lie left that could protect her. "Because some people are cowards," he said, "and some people are bought." Lily's mouth trembled. "Are we going to die too?" That nearly finished him. He pulled her into his arms. "Not if I can breathe. Not if I can stand." She started crying then. Not loud. That made it worse.
Just silent little shakes against his chest. The kind kids do when they're trying to be brave for you. Ben held her until he thought his ribs might crack from the force of staying upright. Then he remembered Elena's hand beneath the pie stand. He went downstairs, lifted the plate, and found a folded diner receipt taped to the underside. On it were 4 words: Sugar bin, blue lid. Ben ran to the kitchen. Inside the blue sugar bin was the phone, and beneath it, another smaller item, a flash drive. Lily appeared in the doorway as he stared at them. Did she trick them? Ben looked up slowly. For the first time all day, something fierce lit in his face. "No," he said. "She tricked the people who think everybody breaks." The next hours moved fast, too fast for fear to keep up. Ben didn't go to the local police. He didn't go to the county office. He didn't even go to the state line. He went to the one person Megan used to trust when the clinic's donors leaned too hard on the hospital board. June Ramirez, former local reporter, fired 2 years ago for ethics issues, which in this town usually meant refusing to bury the truth. She lived in a trailer outside Mill Creek and answered the door holding a baseball bat. When she saw Ben, then Lily, then the bruise on Ben's cheek and the terror in his eyes, she lowered it. "What happened?" Ben held up the flash drive. "I think my wife was murdered by the richest man in the county." June stared at him for a full second. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." The files were worse than Elena promised. Insurance fraud, shell companies, payoff lists, names of deputies, footage from security cameras, a dispatcher audio file marked deleted. And then, Megan's voice, crackling, breathless, terrified. "This is Megan Carter on Route 17. There's a black sedan behind me. I saw them force another car off the road. If something happens to me, my daughter's name is Lily. Please." The audio cut into static. Lily covered her mouth and backed away. Ben didn't. He couldn't. He just sat there while the last living sound of his wife tore through the room like a reopened wound. June wiped her eyes. "This is enough for federal charges." Ben looked at the timestamp on the last file, newer than the others, recorded the previous night. Adrian Hale in a private study, drunk, furious, face half in shadow. "She took everything," he was saying. "If my father loses this election because of her, Mercer knows what to do. And if she runs to Carter, use the girl. He'll fold." June went very still.
They're going after Elena again. Ben stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. Where would they take her?
June was already grabbing keys. Victor Hale is hosting a campaign donor dinner at the Hawthorne estate tonight. Public event outside, private meeting inside. If they want to contain a family scandal before Sunrise News hits, that's where. Ben looked at Lily. She was terrified, exhausted. 10 years old and carrying too much death already. "I'm coming," she said. "No." "Yes." "Lily." She stepped closer, tears in her eyes but chin up, so painfully like her mother it hurt. "They used me because they thought I was just a kid. I'm not. Mom said brave doesn't mean not scared." Ben broke a little then, but not the way Mercer expected, not the way Hale expected. He nodded once. At the Hawthorne estate, chandeliers glowed through glass like a palace pretending to be charitable. Outside, donors, cameras, and local officials drifted under string lights with wine glasses in hand while Victor Hale shook hands and smiled his campaign smile. Ben walked in through the side gate with June and Lily. Every nerve in his body screamed. June had already uploaded copies of the files to 3 national outlets and scheduled the release. But they still needed time. They still needed Elena alive long enough to say what had been done to her. Music floated across the lawn. A string quartet. Rich people always loved violins during other people's disasters. Then Ben saw her. Elena stood near the terrace doors in a pale blue dress someone had forced her back into, makeup covering half the bruises and failing at the rest. Wade Mercer stood 2 steps behind her. She looked up, saw Ben, and for a fraction of a second, panic and hope collided in her face. Victor Hale was mid-speech when the giant campaign screen behind him flickered. June grinned. "Showtime." The first file appeared. A ledger. Then names. Then video. Adrian's confession. Gasps exploded across the lawn. Victor turned, color draining from his face. "Shut that off!" Then Megan's 911 call blasted through hidden speakers. The whole estate heard her. Heard the fear. Heard Lily's name. Lily grabbed Ben's hand so tight it hurt. "No!" Victor barked. "This is fabricated!" Elena stepped forward, voice shaking but clear. "No, it's not." Every camera swung toward her. Wade reached for her arm. Ben moved first. He slammed into Mercer hard enough to send both men crashing into a table. Glass shattered. Guests screamed and scattered. Security rushed in. Victor backed toward the terrace, shouting for someone to cut power, kill the feed, do something. But it was already too late. Phones were up. People were filming. Donors were stepping away from him like scandal could stain fabric. Adrian burst out from inside the house, drunk and wild-eyed. "You ruined me," he shouted at Elena. And in front of everyone, he raised his hand. He never got to bring it down. Lily's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Don't touch her." Everything stopped for one perfect second. A 10-year-old girl standing in a borrowed party garden, staring down men who had stolen her mother and tried to steal her future, and refusing to flinch. Cameras caught that too. Mercer got back to his feet and pulled a gun. June screamed. Ben turned just as Elena grabbed the dessert cart beside her and rammed it into Mercer's knees. The shot went wild into the fountain. Security tackled him.
Real state troopers, drawn by June's uploads and the federal call already in motion, flooded the lawn moments later. Victor Hale shouted about conspiracy until they cuffed him. Adrian cried. Mercer bled. And Elena, trembling from head to toe, sank to the grass like her body no longer knew how to carry survival. Ben went to her. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then she looked past him at Lily and whispered, "I'm sorry I brought this to your door." Ben shook his head slowly. "No, you brought the truth." Weeks later, the diner was full again. Funny how a town finds its conscience once the cameras show up and the handcuffs are real. Sheriff Dobbs resigned before he could be indicted, then got indicted anyway. Victor Hale's empire began to crack open state by state. Families came forward. Workers talked. Dispatchers cried on witness stands. Men who had spent years hiding behind money discovered that evidence does not care how expensive your last name is. Elena entered protective custody for a while, then came back, with her own name finally sounding like it belonged to her. No Hale attached. Just Elena. One evening near closing, she sat in booth 6 while Lily did homework and Ben wiped down the counter. The sunset turned the windows orange. Normal. Beautiful. Almost suspicious in how gentle it felt. Lily looked up from her notebook. "Do you still get scared at night?" Elena smiled sadly. "Sometimes." Lily nodded. "Me too." Ben watched them in silence. Then Lily pushed the old stuffed rabbit across the table. "For when you are," she said. Elena laughed, then cried, then laughed again, because some feelings are too full to choose only one. Ben turned off the open sign and looked around the diner that had nearly become a graveyard for truth. Instead, somehow, it had become the place where truth finally sat down and ate. He thought of Megan then, not on the road, not in the wreckage, but in the kitchen years earlier, flour on her cheek, smiling at him like he was better than he believed. He could almost hear her. Keep going. So he did. Because sometimes the person shaking on your doorstep isn't the danger. Sometimes they're the proof that danger has finally run out of places to hide. And when the world told him to look away, a little girl in rabbit slippers taught him how to stand. Tell me in the comments, if someone broken and hunted showed up at your door, would you risk everything to help them?